My Lords, I rise to speak to Amendment 407 as well on the recording of sex in police data. And it's a real shame that the noble lady, Baroness Cash, is unable to be with us, because I know she would have moved it very elegantly. It's a year ago, from March 2025, that Professor Alison Sullivan's review, Data, Statistics and Research on Sex and Gender, came out. And that review pointed out that it is well established that sex is a major determinant of offenders and victimisation. Now, as the noble Lord Strasburger has just pointed out, and he may have been going through the motions, but if I can just say that he went through them very well by explaining very clearly why this amendment matters. It's very difficult for the government to claim to have a target-based campaign to reduce violence against women and girls if you don't have consistent, accurate data in relation to women and girls. But while Professor Sullivan's review was broadly welcomed by the government, its recommendations have not yet been acted on, and this amendment attempts to nudge some action from the government. The issue of delayed guidance is a constant problem. The Women's Rights Network recently contacted the National Police Chiefs Council, inquiring if they intend to now record sex accurately and address what they said was the ideological corruption of data. The NPCC's reply, and I quote, says, "Updates to the collection and recording of sex and gender reassignment questions are pending, subject to the issue of national guidance by the Office of Statistics and Government Statistical Service following the UK Supreme Court ruling earlier this year." So that's one pending answer. Individual police forces responding to a variety of organisations' queries about the continued use of a variety of approaches to collecting sex data, including self-ID, recording a rapist as female and so on, say that they are waiting for guidance from the ONS and the GSS. I mean, is there anyone not waiting for guidance? And it just feels as though this is a waste of time and unnecessarily adding to confusion. At committee, I went into detail about differing and contradictory data collection practices across police forces, and I won't repeat that. But for now, to point out, recording practices vary not just between, but within criminal justice agencies and even relevant government departments. And as there are 40 different databases at a national level relating to criminal justice, it just means that the data that's being collected as we speak is full of discrepancies. The Home Office Standards annual data requirement on demographic data, for example, advises police forces to record sex subject to a gender recognition certificate. Other mandatory Home Office standards on police use of force, for example, require officers to record perceived gender with a choice of male, female, other. Or there's MAPPA, the Multi-Agency Public Protection Agency, which is focused on protecting the public from the most serious harm from sexual and violent offenders, including convicted terrorists. It too conflates sex and gender in its data collection, but the Murray, Blackburn and Mackenzie criminal justice blog discovered via Freedom of Information requests that MAPPA provides police officers across the UK with 51 options to record the gender identity of high-risk offenders. I mean, how does it help the public keep safe or aid operational coherence to know whether a terrorist or a paedophile is pangender, genderqueer, agender, big gender, bigender or gender fluid, just to name a few of the 51 options they could fill in? I'm not trying to be glib. I'm just urging the government to bring clarity and consistency to the collection of data and sex in relation to both victims and perpetrators, because otherwise I think it was unfair to claim that there is anything like an evidence-based policy when it comes to sex and indeed to gender. We actually have recently had some exchanges about the new aggravated offences in relation to transgender people. And there are people who are transgender who claim that hate speech and hate crime against them has gone up. And I'm not challenging whether that's true or not. But in order to actually collate the data to make a case for that, one has to make a distinction in the collection of data between somebody who is transgender rather than somebody who says, I am a woman, who is in fact a transgender person who identifies as a woman. So I think that for all victims concerned, let alone understanding the nature of offenders, we need to have accurate, consistent data across all criminal justice agencies, across all police forces. The noble lady, the Minister, I hope, will at least give us an assurance that Professor Sullivan's fine and important review, which is full of detail and evidence and with practical conclusions, and the government has welcomed it. I hope that those recommendations will be acted on. And if we can get that assurance tonight, then that would be brilliant. If there's any government reluctance to accept Professor Sullivan's review, it would be really helpful to understand why, what the hold-up is, and maybe the Minister could explain that too.
My Lords,